The session in a nutshell. The topic we're covering today is a deep dive into explaining the OT role to others. Now, you might be thinking that seems pretty basic, but it can be actually trickier than you think to do well. But it's actually really important that we do it well to help build rapport and understanding so that your client can really engage in the session, all the things that come after you explain what you're there to do. So you may think if you've been out on placement as a student and seen your supervisor explain the OT role, that'll be pretty easy. Maybe you've written yourself a script based on what you saw your supervisor do and you've learnt it off by heart and you're feeling confident, which is great. But what if your next placement was in a completely different role? What if your first placement was, say, in a peds clinic, but now you need to explain your OT role to an older person in hospital? It's not going to sound anywhere near the same. So in this session, I'm going to break the task down into 5 steps so you can see what actually goes into being able to build your own script for explaining the OT role in any setting. So I'll give you the 5 steps. So number 1 is to consider your audience. So it's thinking about how old they are, what's their level of health literacy, how well will they be able to pay attention while you rattle off your explanation. Number 2 is to consider what they already know about OT. So it's great to ask this so you don't tell them things that they already know, but also so you can address any misconceptions or concerns that they may have about OT right from the start. Number 3 is to think about some examples of what you'll be doing with your client in that setting, because it's those practical examples that will really help your client understand what OT will look like for them. Now, you can have some general examples or some really specific ones, and we'll go through both of those in the session. Number 4 is to make sure you're checking if your explanation made sense. Did your client actually understand you? You can check by asking them, by taking note of their body language, and if there is still confusion, then you can try again with some different examples. And finally, number 5 is to move to phase 2, which is basically how you can segue from your explanation of OT to the main part of the session that you're actually there to try and do. So after we've gone through those steps in a lot more detail than what I just gave you then, I'll show you some examples also and give you some tips for how you can actually practice delivering your own script, building your own script even from the start, so that you can build your confidence with this. And I'll even show you a bit of a neat trick where ChatGPT can help if you're still feeling a little bit lost. So for those that are here live, hopefully we'll have a few minutes left at the end where we can actually have a go at practicing it. You can unmute, I'll stop the recording to make it less scary, and you can have a go and I can give you some direct feedback. If you're watching the recording, then there's some extra homework at the end as well to give you a few more case study type examples that you can do. And then when we have any of the Q&As, or you can use the discussion boards just to ask for some feedback if you would like that. Let's jump into the actual session.